we're going to start this week all about lighting. Now, I'm not going to make these live streams overly long each Thursday because everyone's busy, but I will use this as a chance to get to know you and also to allow you the chance to be able to ask any questions that you've got, and together we will be able to make some amazing productions. So the course of the next few weeks is just giving you an incremental bit of help every single week, and hopefully you can try things out for yourself. I'll give you some activities to do at the end, and then you can share how you get on. So if you are able to comment down below, then do so. I will feature the best ones on screen. And if you'd like to also comment, if you're either watching live, comment #watchlive. And if you're watching on the replay, comment #watchreplay. So without much further ado, let's get things rolling. So lighting is really important when using mobiles in mobile live streaming, especially because the cameras on mobiles are becoming so advanced. A lot of the cameras now can handle low light conditions. I'm going to be showing you a bit more of the kind of conditions that I'm filming in right now, using different lights and techniques and things. So you can do a whole range of different things depending on where you're lighting. If you're lighting indoors and outdoors, obviously the two will be vastly different. If you're lighting outdoors, then obviously that's going to mean a whole new kind of setup and a bit more of awareness of the kind of lighting that you will be doing. So let's dive on in. So really, to keep it really interesting and really super simple, when you are lighting your home studio, there's basically a few things to keep in mind. Okay, you've got to use a range of different light sources to be able to help you key different things, keep focus on different things. So I use a range of different lighting sources, and I'm going to talk about them now. So I've got this main camera feature here. I also use a top-down feature when I'm doing my music tutorials, and I've got an over-the-shoulder view, and we'll talk about that in a little while as well. So this live stream is powered by iOS devices, and I'm sure by now you'll know the actual app that I use. I'll go into more detail about that later on though. Okay, so to light my main focus of this live stream, which is me, I use two different lights. You might see over the shoulder here, I've got a key light, and I'll talk to you more about what a key light is. I've also got a fill light, which is something that you can either have above you, which I have not got switched on today because it tends to be a bit yellow, and also having no hair, it reflects off my head, and that's not a good look either. So that can also serve as a backlight. I'm going to show you what my backlight is in a minute. And then I've also got another fill light which comes from my right hand side through a very slight open window, which I will pan around and show you very, very shortly. So the three lights that I mentioned then, the key light then, this light here, the key light basically, which is the main light source, should be positioned in front and slightly to the side of you. Okay, and it will create a sense of depth and dimension on the face and prevent harsh shadows from being cast. So if I just switch back here, and I know you can see the shadow from my chair, it's probably due to the fact that I've got the light coming over from my right hand side, and as I said before, I've dimmed various sources. You can improve that, and I will show you during this live stream how you do that as well. So you can see that I've got a light on my left hand side, so it'll be your right hand side on the screen, and that's giving most of the light on my face, but also serves to light a lot of the top down view as well that you can see here. I'll talk about this additional lighting in a minute. And so the key light is really important because it's the key light. It's the one that lights the key object of the frame at that particular time. And I'm hoping over the next few months to add additional lighting into this room, but for now it's a really good way to get around that. So let's go. If I think that my face is not quite lit well enough, what I can do is I can actually, using this app, I can actually switch on the LED light of the phone, and it will light my face that little bit more. Checking my camera's probably a little bit too bright, plus you can see the reflection in my glasses. So what I tend to do is I tend to leave that off, and you can see the mild difference that makes as well. If I'm using a top-down view, the same idea. I can then remotely control the light, and I can switch that on, and you can see it sort of lights a little bit better. But what I tend not to do is I tend not to like the reflection that it hits off these. So I tend not to have it on because I've got my more localized light as well. So we'll go into options and budgets and things, and after the live stream's over, I'm going to paste down in the comments a list of examples of equipment that you can then go and do and go and get to light your live stream as well. Okay, so next we were talking about the fill light. Now the fill light is used to fill in the shadows created by the key light. So obviously you can see I've got a shadow here. Now I'm going to show you how I use my window to be and act as my fill light. As I say, in a few months' time, I'm going to try and improve that. So if I was to just walk over to the window and just open it slightly, you'll see how this will affect the live picture when I click back to my main face. So you see, by using that fill light from the window, you can see it's completely eradicated that shadow behind me. It's not as strong as it was before. You can see that I can still move around, and there's a little bit of shadow, but we can tweak that. We can tweak that with the main light. So if I was to just switch on the main light here, that might eradicate or might make it worse. So I mean, it's about toying and playing around with the lighting. But then using a fill light and too much light might overexpose your face as well, which is why I tend to sort of dull the light over on the right hand side, just so it's not too. But everyone will have their own use case scenario, and so we can do that. You can see as I close the blind, you'll see how a lot of the shadows in this studio will then disappear. Okay, so that looks good, and then we're back to normal. A bit more shadowy over here, so we just have to play around with that. I've actually lowered the light from the right hand side, your left hand side on the screen, because there's currently people collecting refuse and what we call bin collection in the UK. So we're really just checking that out as well. So if anyone's got any questions about the lighting that I use, then do obviously ask about that too. The next one we're going to look at is the backlight. Now the backlight is used to separate me from the background, okay? And it can be positioned behind me, and this is something I'm still toying with because I am streaming from quite a small space and the lighting that I've got is fairly low down. So what we'll do is we'll in a moment show you what that looks like behind me using this camera here, and you'll get a sense of what that looks like in a minute. So if I just very quickly show you over here, now you'll see behind me, you might not be able to see all of it, but if I just lower this, you might see, although it's probably not very bright, but you might see if I just switch the main light off. If I do that now, you'll see behind me there's a little bit of a glow. And if I switch back to the main screen, you can see how much difference that key light makes when it's switched off. You can see there's a blue glow. Now my backlight is just a little bit of a blue light that I have on the floor, and I'm hoping to stick that light onto the wall to make that a bit more prominent, so I can then live stream and make different colors as well in different lighting situations. So put the key light back on, and then you'll be able to see that it's the similar light to what I use on this view here as well. So these are additional lights. These are just additional backlights and spill lights, as they would be called, to give your live stream a bit of extra depth and a bit of extra color as well. So the backlight is used to separate me from the back wall to what you see now. Now ideally, and I'm toying with this as well, ideally you would want to position your camera, and that's something that we're going to be talking about in a future stream. Your camera would probably want to position you and the back of the wall fairly far away, but because of the situation I've got in this space, I cannot be too far away from the desk. So yes, basically that can be a bit of a challenge, but that's what I'm working with at the moment, and that's what you need to work with as well. If you haven't got quite as much equipment, if you are doing a live stream, say around cooking or crafts or woodwork or anything like that, then you would have a much bigger space, probably a space to be able to position your cameras a bit further away, so lighting could perhaps be more natural. And that brings me on to talking about outdoors as well. Now outdoor lighting depends on what you then do. Some cases you might need to, if you're using a mobile, to have something called an ND filter, which kind of blocks out some of the sun so you're not too overexposed. The idea is that your light source should be on you. So if you were out and then the light source, if it was either the sun or the moon, you would want that to be behind the camera and blasting light onto you as much as you possibly could. And with the complex nature of phones now, their lenses are so much better and working in low light. I mean, I'm actually using an iPhone XR now. I know they're obviously up to iPhone 14 at the time of recording, but it's really important to be able to say that natural light is a really good source of light, and you've already seen how powerful that is when using it within an indoor setting as well. So we've talked about that. Now LED lighting, that'll move on to some of the other lighting that I use here as well. Now LED lighting is a really good way because they're energy efficient and they come in a variety of color temperatures. And the one I'm using here I can control with my computer, so I can actually change the color if I wanted to. I can change it and change the brightness. I can also change the color to different colors. I can really amplify the mood. I can have it, you know, changing color very, very slowly. And I can also have it as a kind of hot color or cool color as well. So I can go back to my setting, which I can thankfully save, and then drop it down to what it was before. Now I use lighting to make the keyboard, the subject of my live streams, that little bit more exciting, and in doing so then I can then animate what I'm doing a lot more, and it's a really nice feature to be able to do that. And this also corresponds to the light that's behind me as well, so you'll see that the wall behind me is blue, so it changes the space. Now obviously I've got soundproofing all around me, because believe it or not, though this is a small room, it's really echoey if I don't have soundproofing in it, and that's really telling in some of the videos that I've done on this group as well, where I was toying with the audio and toying with various other aspects. So it's really important to be able to do that. Now the other type of lighting you can have is fluorescent lighting. Let me just tone this lighting down a bit more. And fluorescent lighting is probably less common, especially for mobile use, but it is useful. But the problem is, although they're energy efficient, they can cause that flicker. And the good thing about the lights that I use, all the lights that I've shown you so far, as well as the daylight obviously, is they don't cause flicker on the screen, and that's really important. So it is worthwhile really investing in good lighting for your stream to be able to give that flicker-free, controllable, hands-free option as well. And all my lights are connected via Wi-Fi. You can get different versions. You don't have to get branded ones. You can get ones that you can just have and then attach it via your Wi-Fi network, and then most of these will do this. Probably a 2.4 gigahertz network will work mainly with a lot of lights, but then you can switch back to 5 and it remembers it. It's really quite cool. And you can have continuous lights. Now continuous lights are lights, as the name would suggest, that stay on all the time, and these allow you to see the lighting effects as you shoot. So you can have these continuous lights. I suppose it could be argued that these are also a bit like continuous lights, and you can see the lighting effects as you shoot, and they don't change the focus of the camera. So as I move my hands up and down, you get a little bit of shadowing, but mainly the purpose of them stays fairly continuous as well. And then finally the last, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but the last kind of lighting you can use for live streams for certain situations, if you're doing a live gig or whatever, but you can use strobe lighting. And strobe lighting can be quite useful, although it can play havoc with the camera's aperture, and it can cause issues with focus if you are constantly changing the light source all the time. You might have seen a little bit of that focus change earlier on, but hopefully it shouldn't have taken away the whole aspect of the actual of the video quality either. So lighting is really important. Now, to change the lighting that I mentioned earlier on, I am using two things, and I will show you on my screen actually, very, very briefly. Let me just quickly see here and do that. Okay, so on my screen then, you can see that I've got this up here, and let me just zoom in so you can see that a bit more clearly. I've got some Elgato lights, and I use this plugin here, the Control Center plugin, and what I do is I can then control the lighting from here. I can change the color temperature, I can change the brightness, and I can change the color temperature, the color profile, and the brightness. I can also switch on and off each of these lights just with this tab, or if I want to switch all the lights off, I just tab this up here and it just switches the whole thing off, which is amazingly useful. Now they're always updating the software and always updating the firmware of these devices, so they're very well supported, and I really like them because they allow you to do things like this. So if I wanted to switch off all my lighting at the touch of a button, I could do so, and that then you can, with another switch of a button, bring all the lights back on. You can switch off individual ones. So for example, if I didn't want the keyboard to be lit, then I could switch off the keyboard, and then you can see it goes back to plain. Now I like to light it just to give that a bit more interest and a bit more panache to the scene. And you can also change the brightness of that. So I could have it nearly magenta, you can change the color, have it very low. And also I can switch off the, I'll just show you at the back here. You might not see if I just switch off the key light. Probably see if I switch off the back, you've got the radiation of the keyboard light, but I can switch off the back and have that switching on and off on the floor as well. So I can do that with a touch of a button. That's really useful as well. So I use that because, and most of these lights that use Wi-Fi will allow you to do this. They will either have a remote control that comes with them, or they can allow you to control it from the computer. I use the computer because obviously I'm using the computer when I'm doing some of my other tutorials, and it comes in handy to be able to then manage that really easily as well. As I've already spoken about, then you can toggle the lighting from the app that I use, and the app that I use is called Switcher Studio, and you can also grab a chance to be a part of that with by going to the following link. So if you go to joinswitcher.com, you will get a 14-day free trial, and you can do a lot of the features that I've talked about in terms of just lighting your live streams.